It's February 6, 1937. What will the future bring? Will we be victorious for 1,000-year Reich? Or are we going to be crushed by every decent nation in the world and a few bad nations as well? Right. Hello, everyone. This is Gamer1745, and we're taking a look at Hearts of Iron 3's Black Ice 10.51. I know there's a slightly newer version out now, and TRE together. Now, I was just, before starting this, I was playing my other version, which you may have been watching, which is an earlier version of Black Ice, but without it, and we're getting defeated in the Soviet Union. And I know not everyone watches everything and looking at stuff. One issue we are seeing is manpower because of the high casualty rates and divisions shattering instead of losing heart, as it were, losing organization and stopping fighting, both on the attack and on the defense. We've been having massive manpower losses as a consequence of that. Now, one of the things was looking at was conscription loss. We are currently at what is this, extended conscription here, which I think you should be at this point from playing that. Once we get nearer to the war, though I did notice, because this, let's take a look here. Stay where I leave you when I move my hand away. Okay. 3-year draft. Minus 4%. Extended conscription minus 4%. Because I thought, okay, yeah, see here, look at this. Look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. I can't move the thing around because up near the top, you have 3-year draft minus 4%. And down at the very bottom, 3-year draft extended conscription minus 4.5%. So what I'm seeing with that, because I did notice a thing up, a similar thing pop up there, and I don't think this is a bug. Let's see, I gotta move shifts because somebody's saying something here and I'm not reading it well. Oh, okay, Lawless. The film about partisans in the Soviet Union about World War II, you ask. And before that, Fury. Okay, cool. Don't know the partisan Soviet Union one unless it's a world actually made during World War II. I demand you make some heavy tank units. Well, we'll see about that, Arno. That would have helped in our last thing. So keep this in mind. I don't think this is a bug. I think this is sort of a comboing thing. So we have extended. We have this effect modifying it, plus a combination triggered effect from 3-year draft and extended conscription there. So keep that in mind. And your ICs. So I don't know what TRE should do, if anything, and that's what I was asking in one of the other videos. And if you post it over there, you can post again here now if you wish, or I'll probably have seen the comments there as well. Okay, good World War II movie is 1944, a Russian movie about a part of the Baltics that were some heavy fighting. Okay. Is that like the Kurland pocket, I think, maybe? Up here? I'm guessing? I don't know. Because I wonder how much TRE should do about any of this stuff. Come and see, 1985. Okay, cool. Find a link. Generation War is a good movie. I have not seen Generation War. I think I've seen a few clips from Generation War, Omar, and I have not seen Come and See. I'll say that. And I'm not sure about Arno's movie about the Baltics either. I've been disappointed in modern Hollywood, shall we say. I know not all movies are from Hollywood. I mean, even the quote-unquote Hollywood movies are not all from Hollywood, but the big American ones. There was the sort of comedy where, went around killing all the Nazis and whatnot. I'm sure that was very cathartic for the Hollywood crowd. And I didn't see that. And I don't know. I was worried about seeing Fury, so I have not seen Fury. Maybe I should. As being disappointed in it. I just have low expectations of Hollywood. And so I've avoided some Tannenberg line. Okay. Interesting. To me, that sounds World War One, but yeah, okay. So I've just sort of avoided things like Fury, and I forget the other one where there's the Resistance Hollywood stuff. There's probably a bunch of good. Fury is a good movie, but with way too much Hollywood. That's what I was sort of worried about. A really great movie is Schindler's List, but I saw it once and I don't need to see it again. It's a very depressing movie, but it's an important movie to be seen. And similarly, is Saving Private Ryan. It's not quite as depressing, but it is a movie I enjoyed watching. I don't know if I've seen it twice, but I know I've seen it once fully. But I don't know, it's just something I haven't gone back and watched a few times. And I know some of those are now dated movies. But they're very good movies. And I'm just worried about the modern Hollywood stuff. Not shooting and explosions, but yeah. And just from the previews of Fury, it's just like this one tank and it's going to stave off this huge thing. And I just didn't see it. So not that I don't want to see it ever. It's just I haven't seen it. It still is A Bridge Too Far. Bridge Too Far is a great movie. And you can have a realistic movie or series like Band of Brothers that shows the reality of combat. And then you can sort of have Private Ryan, which I see there's of course at the beginning of Private Ryan, it's a very, very intense D-Day landing situation. It's been years since I've seen the movie. And then there was some, I thought, overly dramatic, what do you do about the captured soldiers, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Band of Brothers is hands down the best world movie series, yes. Hello, Scott Hoffman. How you doing? Oh, it is great. I've sort of been meaning to rewatch it, but I actually wanted to sort of, I don't know whether binge watch it or but go all the way through and, within like a week's period of time, but I just haven't taken the time to do it. It's really, really good. I really liked how that was portrayed. Um, I'll just say this. I have not worked in the last 2 or 3 weeks on Third Reich events. Just been going through a lot of stuff that's, well, not that I haven't had time to work on Third Reich events, and not that the stuff has been overwhelming, but it's been a bit that I've been having to deal with, been a bit involved. But when I get into mod, I sort of, my headspace gets in there. I don't want to just mod for half an hour and try to sort of dig in and go at things. And if I, and this is one of the reasons I'm getting back and sort of playing at this and looking at how this is working together. Something had to give, and I was under biggest problem was time pressure, and that was mostly over a week or so ago, the time pressure, but I'm still sort of decompressing from some of it, and there's still some pressures going on. Good, man. Hope I'm having a good Saturday. Yes, I am. I don't know if it's great, but it's good. The Pacific. I have not watched the Pacific, Arno. I should watch that as well. And so, and you probably noticed I've reduced my output of to a point almost 1 week, took a week off of doing YouTube as well. But that's why modding has sort of fallen by the wayside, and we're going to get back to that. And then sort of playing this is trying to get me motivated here. I have one guy, Exergen, or the artist Greg, however you want to call him, has been helping me some, but it's still mostly falling on me to do, which is a pressure, which is what I've been trying to avoid recently, is more pressures on me. So I'm still thinking on this manpower issue, that how much. I'm really glad I hadn't intended on the last, the series that have become the Ragnar Ghost and to go nearly as long, but I'm sort of glad that it has, because, and that's why we're playing this, is to look at things like these modifiers here and how TRE interacts with them, and what TRE. The Pacific is significantly worse than the Band of Brothers. The character development isn't there. The Pacific Theater was just so much more depressing. Yeah, that's a little bit of my sort of worry too about the Pacific. I'm okay. Interest levels, 1 through 10. European Theater of Operations, it's about a 12 for me, out of 1 through 10. I'm really interested in it. The Pacific Theater, on a 1 through 10, I'm probably interested in it at about 7 or something. So, or a 6. I'm rather interested in it, but I'm not super interested in it. It just, there's a lot of cool things with World War II, and a lot of it goes back to my childhood. And some of the early childhood stuff was playing war games, actual war games, and I was like, 10 years old or maybe slightly younger at times, in which either HO scale or micro armor scale, moving tanks and anti-tank guns around and rolling the dice and playing the game, not just going pew, 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 but, doing the whole dice rolling, check, see what your results are, doing the stuff before computers were a thing, really, for any sort of wargaming. That was hey, Van Bishop. So it goes back to that, and then playing, sort of like Panzer Leader and Panzer Blitz and Avalon Hill's Third Reich. That is sort of why we call it Third Reich Events, for my mod. I mean, it's also a German event mod, but the name's very descriptive of what is in it. So that part of it, my interest goes back to my childhood in World War II. But a major part of my continuing interest in World War II is the what if. And I really will say, because, what I do believe Germany had the opportunity to win World War II. It's just like I truly believe the Confederacy had the opportunity to win the American Civil War. It's just if the American Civil War, you're seeing me do the air quotes, but if the American Civil War is a war of attrition, the North will always win. However you war game it, the North will always win. Because obviously, unless we have weird time machines enabled or to do alternate real history, obviously it's only going to be in war games. But war games done really well can be a good barometer of possible alternative outcomes. So if the American Civil War is a war of attrition, the North will always win. And it's only a matter of how fast that will be. And so, and this is one of the reasons, and I've recently been, maybe I'll take it, opportunity to get a key for Ultimate General on Steam for the American Civil War. But one of the reasons I've avoided, because my channel is so German/Nazi already, my YouTube channel, associated because of the mod, because of playing Germany, is why I really went hard into the sort of Scottish theme, is to not be the German channel. Hey, Marcel, or the Nazi YouTube channel or something. Is why I really sort of went with the Scottish theme for it, to sort of counterbalance it. Because of the controversy of the Confederacy, and yes, supporting slaves is bad, slave owning is bad, I'm not trying to do that, but because of it, my interest with the American Civil War is with the South, because I think the South could have won. But like I say, if it's a war of attrition, it only comes down to a matter of time. And so I don't know whether on some of these games, and some of it just, victory points, get enough of them, you win. The American Civil War could have been won, possibly, in right after the Battle of Manassas, or the First Bull Run in 1861, had the Confederacy just realized, Beauregard and his army of Northern Virginia, or whatever it was called right at that moment, at the end of that, just realized that once they won Manassas, that the Union was just panicked, how bad the panic was, and just pushed any sort of units, battalion strength and greater, but any sort of units at Washington, D.C. I think they would have taken Washington, D.C. I think, because I think everyone would have panicked. The garrison troops there would have panicked. Now, could they have captured enough of the government and tried to force a peace settlement out of them? Maybe, maybe not. Could they have got Maryland in the Confederacy and then shown in essence, a collapse in support in the North politically for the Civil War? Quite possibly. And see, that's the question and I often talk about, everybody has to realize, there's also the European support, Scott, and there would have been massive amounts of European support from both the French and the British had it not been over the question of slavery, and particularly Britain was very much at that time crusading against slavery. But the geopolitical interests of both France and Spain as well, France and Britain, would have been to have America not one big super country, but divided into 2 or 3 countries. So it's the slavery issue, of course, again, gets to be the problem there, outside support. But like I keep saying, warfare is a political act. And Lincoln, and it was far from sure that Lincoln was going to win re-election. And the Copperhead movement, the anti-war movement, that from everything from, I don't know if you want to call it pro-slavery, but in the North, I'm talking, because the Copperhead movement's in the North, if you know about it, in the American Civil War era. Whether it's actually, because I don't know a lot about the Copperhead movement. I know bits. There's definitely an anti-war / anti, anti, it's not that they're like pacifists, but it's, should we be dying, should we Northerners be dying to try to keep the South into the Union and or keep free the slaves? Should one Two, should we even be killing other Americans, the Confederates, over the slavery issue, And so whether they were pro-slavery, they were definitely, and a lot of people, a lot of the Northerners that we've been fighting it, they were for slavery. They were wanting to help out the lesser black people that were slaves. They were racists anyways. They just weren't pro-slavery, many of them. I would say the overwhelming majority of human beings on the planet were racists at the time. I would say the overwhelming majority of human beings on the planet today are racist, but not so much Europeans and Americans and that. I'm talking people like Chinese and Africans themselves and other people. I know we're getting into this mode here, but there was, Lincoln's reelection was not assured. And we could easily see significant, if you have either a high casualty total or a few more debacle battles in which the Confederacy turns flanks, destroys a few Union armies, I could easily see political support in the North collapsing for continuing the Civil War, whatever Lincoln, is trying to do. And so I could easily see a Confederacy win. So if I was playing as the North, it's just don't lose the war and grind down the South. It interests me very little. Why haven't I played so far any of the series for Hearts of Iron 3 or Hearts of Iron 4 for the U.S.? Because I know how to win as the U.S. It's simple. You just follow the basic playbook of World War II. They already wrote the book. We can just follow it. You don't have to follow it in every little detail, but it's been done. And in my opinion, so long as it comes down to a war of attrition, which it did in the Second World War for Germany, Germany's always going to lose if it's a war of attrition. And we can clearly see, if it's going to be a war of attrition between France and Britain versus Germany, Germany's going to lose. But in 1940, Germany didn't have it come out as a war of attrition. They had it as what I call a war of maneuver and decision, okay? They were able to fight not North Africa. They were able to fight the Battle of France as a war of maneuver and decision, not a war of attrition. I believe that, they tried that with the Soviet Union, but Germany just did not have the German army was just not, I don't know, how do you put it? They just, they were doing well with their wars of maneuver of attrition and maneuver and decision, but even wars of maneuver and decision have attritional elements within them. And the units, my understanding is most of the tank units that we're getting into, almost inside of the spires of Moscow kind of thing, wherever it was, on this map, they were at like 1/4 or less of tank strength. The Panzer Division. Now, that doesn't mean all the tanks were destroyed. It just means a lot of them were, some of it literally just from driving worn out and were in various field depots, maybe fairly sophisticated field depots being reworked, and others that had been, quote unquote, knocked out. We could add a term, knocked out of action, because you can think about being tracked, and that can be fairly quickly put back into action. But maybe you, instead of just tracking the tank, knocking the tracks off from running on the wheels, but you fired in such a way that the axles and other elements got bent up. So it's not just replacing tracks you've got to get it into. You got to disassemble the Panzer, take it all apart, put in some new pieces and reassemble it. So it's going to take days or weeks or something, depending on, how overworked the repair and maintenance logistics people, even if they have the spare parts, to get that Panzer back into action. So, or just, other damage that knocks it out of action, but can be put back into operational use again. So by the time you're at the gates of Moscow, Germany was just had been attrited in various ways, that they were exhausted. The size and scope of just even if just the landmass of the Soviet Union was too much for Germany as it was prepared and as it fought in 1941. Now, there are real decisions that could have been made leading up to it that could have better prepared Germany for its invasion of the Soviet Union. So, that is the thing. Now, when it comes to, and I know I get off on these tracks, and I hope they're interesting. I will check out your comment in a moment, Arno. Japan, and we did play a series of, we have played as Japan, but in my opinion, the Pacific Theater, Japan loses the Pacific War in two factors on December 7th, 1941. And because it loses then, I have a lot less interest in the theater of operations. Why does it lose? We can say, one, fundamentally, Japan was unable to win the war in China. Or the Japanese army, we could say, was unable to win the war in China. And it was being strangled for things like oil and fuel. So it starts other wars that it's going to lose anyways. Now, and so just simply fighting against the war, and yes, I know I've talked about warfare as a political act. Can Japan make something too painful for the U.S. to keep fighting? Possibly. But here's where they also lose it, is they enraged the American population by their surprise attack. So they wanted a military and political decision, war of decision, and sink the big American fleet, and then get a negotiated peace out of that. That was their goal and objective. Their goal and objective was to start a war with the U.S., sink the fleet, negotiate a peace settlement, because Japan's only other military conflict we won't talk about fighting some Spanish vessel way back whenever or something. Its only real military conflict prior to with the European power, or which we consider America to be a European power in this sense, or they would have, was the Russo-Japanese War, which becomes a stalemate basically, and then Russia, to try to break that stalemate, sends its fleet around, and then the fleet gets sunk in the Straits of Tsushima here, and by the Japanese in a big fleet battle. And then Teddy Roosevelt organizes peace talks and gets the thing settled. They want a similar replay. They see Russia and America as similar, great continental powers that are fairly distant, because although, Vladivostok, yeah, but especially in the Russo-Japanese War, that's some distant outpost. That would be sort of like some Alaskan outpost or something to America. It's way at the edge of Russia's empire. Because they, see, and rightly so, see, this is Russia here. This is just the Russian wilderness that you have to travel across to fight the Japanese. So a distant, great continental imperial power. So they want a replay of that. Well, they were afraid of a replay of that in the sense, or they thought they had the brilliant opportunity, but in sinking the fleet in the harbor on day one, even if an hour or two before the attack happens, there was somebody in the Secretary of State's office with a declaration of war ready to hand it to the um, uh, the Secretary of State of the United States, Cordell Hull at the time, maybe, I don't know, and they simultaneously had called a press conference on the steps of the Japanese embassy, and read off a declaration of war against the United States. So 2 hours before any launching of any aircraft or something like that against the Americans. That might not have enraged the American people so much, but it still was not going to achieve their goal. What they needed to do, of course, was to actually have a large American fleet come in and get sunk. But like I say, if they declare war against the United States, that politically are those people at the time. Now again, today, we'll just, before you think I'm going, yay, America's great and wonderful, super, it's never going to be defeated. Today, if North Korea were to declare war against the United States, not only would Joe Biden be scrambling to get the American troops out of South Korea, he would be offering them, North Korea, can we give you Japan, please, as well? We can also give you Alaska, so we would be surrendering to North Korea. Now, if China attacked us, man, they would be offering up not only all of Asia, they would be, hey, we'll give you California, we'll give you, what else do you want, China? So America would be collapsing right now if anybody were to do it. How do you think Japan or Germany could have won war? Well, all of my series talk about Germany, but this is why I'm saying Japan, I don't think can. The way you have to, looking at, even at the time, because there was a little bit of pushback at some of the casualty levels of some of like Iwo Jima or Saipan, or I forget which one. There was in some San Francisco newspaper a little bit of pushback, but it was really, really minor against casualty levels. And should we be, having such high casualties for taking these Pacific Islands? Because again, and I know I keep coming back at this. Yeah, Biden's a joke. Yes, Scott Hoffman, he is. And don't, when we are making fun, and I'm making fun of Biden, but don't think it's Biden who's making any of these decisions. It's his advisors, and they're presenting, well, we have this and this and this, and this would be the best one, Mr. President. And he's going, yeah, okay, yeah, the one you said is the best one is going to be the best one. It's those people that are running it. They're a joke too. But don't think it's that old befuddled guy who's actually trying to make plans for whatever's going on. Excuse me, a little bit of hiccups. So the way to do it, and I look at this through history, is why I'm informing this. You don't declare war on America. We can look whether it's 9/11 or other things. You don't want to declare war on America. You want America to declare war on you, okay? That's the sort of jujitsu move that Japan did not understand, okay? And this, I guess we could say, is how Japan, I don't know that they could win, because we have to take in the realities of the European theater and America getting involved anyways. But if we were to look at Japan and the Pacific and Asia in isolation, here is how Japan could, not would, I'm not saying would, but could possibly have won. They had a very limited, though existent, propaganda game, and been collecting for possible future event mods or whatever, as well as thumbnails, propaganda posters that Japan did, but they needed to do it better. And the quote-unquote rape of Nanking, yeah, okay, the algorithm just buried this video. So hey, please like the video, please share this video to keep the algorithm from burying it, because I'm just criticizing China here. Totally agree, Japan didn't understand American resolve to fight if they were attacked. See, and now they were enraged because it was a surprise attack. But if you're just attacked, that will still get America enough to fight the war. So they need to do, they need to not have things like Nanking that are just, murder parties, where literally some wannabe samurai dudes kind of, a couple of them, were having how many heads they could chop off that day competitions with samurai swords. And we're just going around just chopping people's heads off and doing as many. You don't do that, okay? You just don't do that. And have a better propaganda game set up, both targeting at Asian peoples and targeting, which you will call it the Western audience, which is Britain, America, Australia, whatever. And then when you decide to, so you do better with propaganda in China. You try to better explain why you're fighting in China. You try to do better Mukden incidents, or the bridge, forget the name of the bridge incident here near Beijing. You try to do better jobs at blaming the Chinese for their disorder, their hey Eric, how you doing? Try to make the fault of the war less Japan's fault and maybe a mutual conflict. But once, let's just say you sort of get involved in the war in China anyways, that's why they're going to fight with America eventually. America is very anti-Japan moving into China. I'm not going to go down all the reasons for that, but there's a bunch. And you decide that because America is anti, and this is primarily why, and America is not selling you enough steel, and America is not selling you enough oil, or any oil or steel at some point, because of your bad behavior, See, and it wasn't even, in my opinion, why they stopped, where they were putting the embargoes on China, that they were in a war with China. It's part of the reason, but that's not why they got enough support through Congress to do all of that. The reason they got enough support is because of bad Japanese behavior in the war. Again, the rape and murder parties that Japan was periodically throwing. That gets them embargoed. So they want the oil from down here and iron ore, steel from wherever they're trying to get it from, which I don't know how much is down here, but definitely the oil is down here is driving it. So what they need to do is, again, we'll take around 1941, breaking down of negotiations with the United States, not then declaring war against them, but them declaring liberation of, Dutch East Indies, liberation of the East Indies, because we're also trying to throw in Malaya in here. Liberation of the East Indies from European occupation. And go in and do their blitz lightning attacks against Malaya and against the Dutch East Indies. And either secure that and get enough oil to keep operating your war. May not be all the dream levels of oil you could possibly want, but enough to keep fighting in the war against China. And just do that. Or if that then does trigger an American intervention, I'm trying to use these words very carefully, at the time would maybe meaning declaring war, but it's America declaring war against you. And then, very good, Eric, and then you need to inflict great pain on the Americans And then the Americans will, what are we fighting for? To protect European colonial powers' possessions of the Dutch East Indies and British Malaya. Hey, we're anti-colonialism. Oh, wait a minute, we're colonialists. Yeah, I know, we're colonialists, but we want to forget that we're colonialists. But we're colonialists, but we're anti-colonialism, or we're anti-European colonialism, or we're for local independence, or whatever, and try to get the Americans to, hey, this is tough. This is not just like, hey, we've got to, work in factories, or hey, we've got to train hard. This is like killing a lot of our American citizens. Is this worth defending Dutch and British and maybe French European supremacy over Asia? Now, if you were to be invading Australia, which, is primarily a white country, or European, or however you want to say it. I mean, there are, the Aborigines down there, and cool, good, but they're a small percentage of the population. Well, then that looks like you're protecting a similar country to America. So you don't want to do that. Not that you don't go to war with Australia, but you don't invade Australia if you're Japan. So you have to look at the American, because the Americans do feel to this day a lot of kinship with other, and I'm using this term specifically again, Anglo peoples and cultures. We feel that. We feel kinship with Australia and New Zealand and Canada because they're similar colonial type peoples that have moved, and they're not, you see, unlike the Malaya colony is Britain coming in and exploiting the resources. And sure, there is a very small number of Brits who are truly moving and becoming local. Most, if any of them, are down in Singapore, but it's a very small number. Most of the Brits are there for a career. They may be there for 20 years in the jungle, and maybe, on a plantation or something, and maybe get married to, a British woman who comes out and lives, but they're still thinking of themselves as British. Whether they ever go back to Britain and live in Britain, retire in Britain, which is sort of, their maybe retirement goal, they see themselves as British over colonials, where we, the Americans, these guys are Australians. They're no longer British. Sure, there's a percentage of them that, even to this day, see themselves as Brits living in Australia, but we and they see themselves as, and we see them as Australians. Like we see ourselves as Americans. That is how we Americans divide this up. So if it's British people, because I'm saying that because it could be Scottish, could be some Irish, could be English, and we'll throw the Welsh in for good measure, could be occupying some area and is seen as individual, at least as the people, as, occupiers, where this seems nation building. So it's different. So Americans won't see anything to liberate here. Cursed American politics, yes. So that's very true. Hi, Hoffman. How you doing? And so, yes, Biden is. And so that is how Japan can win, is you force America to declare war on it, and then you make it painful, preferably, or, from Japan's perspective, preferably by sinking one or more major fleets, and any islands invading, make them have high casualty counts. If you do that, that is the only possible way Japan, as I see it, could possibly win, and I don't even know what winning looks like. Maybe at that point even, Japan still might have to retreat from China and retreat from some of these other areas in a negotiated settlement, but enough that Japan isn't being conquered by the U.S. But I don't know of a war game, or even in Hearts of Iron, how you can do that. And so if it comes down to, as it does, an attritional war, Japan always loses. This is partially why I have less interest in the Pacific in World War II. Yes, it comes from watching old war movies, John Wayne and others, but also from the study of history. A lot of the attacks on a lot of these islands out here, like Guam, gets to the point that it is tactically there's decisions to be made, but the decision is not in doubt as to who's going to win the battle here at the point. It's and Nimitz does a great job. He brings a big fleet, covers everything, and just pounds them, and then sends in. Yeah, there's fighting to be done, but it's not. In a war game that's grand scale, question of die rolls, or in real life a question of how good the tactical combat leadership for the Battle of Guam. The Battle of Guam is just going to be won, and even once you're getting into the campaign to retake the Philippines, it's just a matter of time. Where some of the early stuff in the Solomons, particularly Guadalcanal, is this Guadalcanal? Yes, Guadalcanal. That there's a bit of a decision. Are you going to be able to do it or not? But eventually, it just gets to be a steamroll type effect, and that just doesn't interest me so much. Hey, IKB, long time no see. Good to have you here. So that is why I have less interest in the Pacific and Asian theaters, is because the way it rolls out. Where Germany, I think it was a close run thing, and I think it was mostly German mistakes. I keep forgetting his name, and I haven't really done anything, but I'm going to save anyways. This is going to be billed as a talking episode at this point. But let me hold on here. I want to come Google, get a name. I keep forgetting, and it's always on the tip of my tongue. I don't know. For some reason, I have these memory. Whenever I try to come up with some of this stuff, for some reason, names don't come easy. But once I see it, no. The other alternative for Winston, or for Prime Minister other than Churchill, and I don't mean Chamberlain. The Prime Minister. Halifax. Thank you, IKB. Thank you. See, as soon as you said it, I know it. Okay, and it's not that I don't know it. It's just for some reason whenever I try to drop a not necessarily a person's name, but a proper name, and I'm just not used to Lord Halifax. That's it. So there's that decision moment. France is not going well. The Battle of France is not going well, and there's 3 men in the room. Chamberlain, who I have more respect for now that I've looked into it. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. There's 3 men in the room. Chamberlain, who realized that war was coming after the Munich conference / whatever, selling out in a way, yes, but Chamberlain, wrongly or rightly, believes. I do watch a lot of TK videos though, so I'm a bit biased. Sure, he's great too. Are you over the newer IQB? So whether he believes Britain is not ready for a war with Germany in 1938. He believes it's best for the world as a whole, and Britain in particular, to not go to war over Czechoslovakia in 1938 as it stood. And whether he's wrong or right about that, and we could look at military details, but again, warfare is a political act. He doesn't necessarily think the British people are willing to go to round 2 of World War, destruction of everything, see who survives at the end, just then in 1938 over Czechoslovakia. Again, and so he starts building up the British people. Why die for, it was more common in France. Why die for Danzig? When World War II actually does break out, then you see that in Britain. And you have much, much, much more war support, even before the invasion of France, for the war in Britain than you do in France. Britain is much more unified in its stance against Germany than France was, even when they thought the Maginot Line was going to hold the Germans back. There was more support for the war in than Britain than there is in France. And France was thought to be the great military power. So Chamberlain is in this room. The war is not going well. Chamberlain is in the room with Churchill and Halifax. And everybody knows that there's going to be there's no confidence left in Chamberlain as a war leader, and he's on his way out, and it's only a matter of time. So he might as well try to get out now and get things done best, because he actually, for as long as he stays alive, because he's diagnosed or whatever, had with cancer at some point, and so he's dying, but he even after this point he's dying, but he is continuing in government as part of an advisor and whatnot to the cabinet, sort of a, I don't know exactly his role, Chamberlain's in the war cabinet that Churchill does, but he's continuing and giving his full support to Churchill and the war effort. He is not the defeatist that people make him out to being. I don't know how much his sickness leading up into 1940 was affecting his war leadership. Probably some, probably not known by him at the time. So I have respect for him. But who is he going to recommend to the king to form the next government? So this is not being put at the time to a vote by Parliament. And I think, though, somebody can look into it to see, I think it's because the French suffered. Yes, Lawless, there's French suffering in World War I was greater than Britain, but Britain suffered greatly. There's also the political divide in France going back to, before the French Revolution, 1789, but continuing the communists, the royalists, the conservatives but not royalists, the imperialists, the wannabe Bonaparte type group, to the various more central, social left and social right type political party. France is fractured. There's all kinds of reasons, Lawless, and you're right. World War I is a major one. It's like one of the top 3, if not the top 1. I don't know just exactly, but France, there's a lot of things going on with France, and leading up to World War II. I don't think the French people thought that they were going to lose, as that's why there wasn't the war support. Meaning, I think there would have been much more unified support for the war in France if they thought there was a real likely possibility that they could be conquered by Germany and then maybe, just be a German puppet forever. And they would be a harder... Oh, you've been to Tank Fest? Very good. Very good, IKB. Love to see the pictures. Put them up on our Discord so that we can all see them, please. Wherever else you may put them, but I'd love to see them. Mentioning that, and if I haven't already, poke me in the comments to put a fresh link to our Discord server so you can see IKB's photos and other cool stuff that's posted in the Discord forum, and the ability to chat with me and others there. We do have interesting conversations at times. So I think Halifax, if it had been put to the vote of the Commons, Halifax would have been elected Prime Minister over Churchill. But they're in that room. And this is the reporting that comes out of it, whether it's correct or not. But Chamberlain asks, who should I, of you two, it's understood. I guess somebody could throw in somebody else, but there's nobody else that's viable. And he is thinking of conservative politicians and not somebody else. There's no one else really viable beyond them, at least as it's seen, as a real war leader for Britain at the time. Who should I propose to the king to form the next government? Churchill turns his back and looks out the window. So that leaves Halifax facing Chamberlain. So Churchill's just declined to speak. So Churchill has just made the statement, not verbally, but made the statement is, I'm not going to say this other guy should take it. And so, and if it's a choice between me and him, I've just said it's not him, so it has to be me. And so, Chamberlain and Halifax looking at each other in the eyes, and Halifax says Churchill. I don't know what's going through his mind, obviously, and I don't know if he's written about it, but obviously there's self-justification. But whether he didn't want to push himself forward, me, or whether he just realized Churchill was the man to lead the war. Because Halifax, he had previously spent the night or multiple nights at Goering's home, was at least friendly with Goering. Now, maybe he hated Goering's guts. Maybe he thought he was a boorish, fat pig of a Nazi and hated his guts. But he had friendly relations. He at least pretended to be friends with Goering. Now, a lot of times things like this happen, and you can see U.S. presidents and Soviet leaders like Gorbachev palling around. And I think a lot of times the U.S. president thinks, hey, he's running an evil system, gulags and whatnot. But they're pretending to be nice. They're pretending to like each other. And they may be affable, meaning, socially friendly, if you will, pleasant to be around. But so, where Churchill would never, in any of his visits, have ever stayed at any Nazi leader's home. He might have gone, doesn't, just because of things. He might have gone to Berchtesgaden to have a meeting with Hitler, but he's driving out that night to go stay in a hotel. He is not going to ever single to anybody that he would stay in a Nazi leader's home. He might visit them on a diplomatic thing, but he isn't staying, with them in the same home. Now, if they sort of cleared out a building, evacuated, a privately owned home for him that happened to be a Nazi leader's home, but taken over, British security, British staff, whatever, temporarily, that maybe might have, something that Churchill could have done, but he was never going to stay at somebody's home, Nazi leader's home. So Halifax has been friendly with it. And then later, as things aren't going well, Halifax puts a motion into Commons to see if there's a motion to push Churchill to negotiate with Hitler later on. Things aren't going well. France is all, this is after the fall of France. This stuff isn't going so well. America's not yet into the war. I forget what the date is. Halifax pushes a motion in Parliament that, would urge Churchill to negotiate with Hitler. Or if he doesn't, that might be a reason for, no confidence vote against Hitler. So if Halifax had been prime minister and things not going well, he would have opened up negotiations with Hitler, I do believe. College didn't try to negotiate peace with the Germans via diplomatic Norway, but got last minute. Yes, it's sort of what I'm talking about, Hoffman. And I don't remember all of the details, but he's pushing for negotiations at different points with the Nazis. So had Britain negotiated a settlement, a ceasefire of some sort with Germany. Now, maybe because you look at the Napoleonic Wars as an example, and I'm sure that any negotiated settlement with Germany would not, so long as Germany isn't occupying London, they may be occupying Egypt or something, but they're not occupying London. The negotiation isn't going to limit the size of the Royal Navy, isn't going to limit the size of the Royal Air Force, isn't going to limit the size of the Royal Army. They're going to, so it would be Britain arming themselves up for possible future conflicts, maybe professing to be defensive in nature and may even being supported by the various factions in government, left, right, center, whatever, as defensive rearmament posted. They're not going to have a limitations with Nazi Germany. Halifax wouldn't. They might do a negotiated settlement, but doing that negotiated settlement signals to the U.S. Britain's war support is only half-hearted. I'm not coming into a war that Britain might peace out on me again, and I'm stuck into a war with continental power, superpower Germany. So that could get Germany to win, and I will say this: so long as it is a war that's Nazi Germany versus Soviet Russia, and even if it's an attritional war, I believe Germany wins. It's only when there's significant other pressures, Britain, and remember, Germany invades the Soviet Union in 1941. And at the end of 1941, America's in the war. Germany, the winter counteroffensive that pushes the Germans back is pretty heavy toll on the German manpower of the divisions along the front line, but it's not terrible, I don't think. It's bad, but not terrible. What is terrible is so much equipment, because so many vehicles are abandoned and equipment's abandoned. Lots of their horses die, so the wagons that are towing artillery pieces or radios or whatever, in the wagons that are towing all the gear, are abandoned. So Germany loses so much equipment in that Russian counteroffensive. It recovers, but things aren't going that bad. That is the Russian counteroffensive, the winter counteroffensive pushed back from Moscow. Yeah, that's an upset. Germany can build back better. That's what the Biden administration believes, build back better. Very well could have. But it's basically in 1942 and leading up to and making Germany worried in 1942 of U.S. British intervention pushing on them, and Italy's unable, to take North Africa, to hold the Mediterranean. That is the problem. We were talking, I think it was it was this last week, and Van Bishop was still around. I think he was there for it on the Slytherin channel. It was him. Was it him? I think. At one point, 400,000 German soldiers by the time D-Day happens, but through much of the war, 400,000 German soldiers are occupying Norway, set up to prepare against a possible Allied invasion. 400,000 soldiers are sitting in fucking Norway. And there's been huge construction efforts by Organization Todt using local labor as well as other labor imported, but also huge amounts of, steel, concrete, guns that have been installed along the Norwegian coast to help defend it. All of that effort should have been put after the Soviet Union. And I know some of you guys do a lot. TIK is one of the main channels that other people that watch my channel also does. And I watched some of TIK's stuff, at most a third. It's just time and whatnot. But he's doing a really good series, and I've only watched bits of it, about Stalingrad. And he's made the point that, you just throw in another 100,000 troops, you don't have the rail transport to feed them. And he's probably very right about that. But that doesn't mean you don't have... and I don't think it's a problem for the Reichsbahn that they have enough engines or rolling stock. I think it's more the state of the railways coming up to this part of the front. All those 400,000 troops, not all of them are going to be frontline soldier types anyways, whatever they're doing. Some of them will be, and those construction people. Just think, all of the construction workers, some of them, are locals. A large number of them are local Norwegians. And if you didn't go to war in Norway, if you let it be peaceful, they would be out of the war, true. But they also imported slave labor, if you will, and conscripted labor into the element, as well as German, at least technical labor, meaning sort of the more advanced elements of the labor force, technically. But all that steel could be upgrading Russia's infrastructure, and you could probably get 200,000 men together for a local counteroffensive, or just local offensive, however you want to say it, on a front other than Stalingrad. That would mean that the pincer arms that one hits sort of from the south and one sort of from the north, or whatever, that comes around through this plains area here. One of that, the amount of army that they're getting ready, would probably be needed to stop this other counteroffensive. So, and I don't mean at the last moment throw the counteroffensive. I mean while you're pushing your offensive down, towards Stalingrad, down in the Caucasus, you're also doing another area of offensive, and even if it was just another 100,000 men or something, that could have been done. And so, if you take Britain out of that war, the German-Soviet war, Germany can win. So these are some ways that Germany can win. And that's, political what if. But even if you don't take the Halifax, leadership and his willing to negotiate with Hitler, you can look at what happens in 1942 and very early 43, and see what could have happened beforehand. Germany sends Panzer Army Africa to Tunisia. Well, had you sent even half of that force, and yes, again, there's logistical problems, but you can supply it via Greece. But had they sent even half of that force a year earlier, they would have won in North Africa. It was that close. The El Alamein fortress, Germany was exhausted by that point, but had you, been feeding in, say, the forces that are pushing, to El Alamein in the first place, that get stopped in sort of the first battle of El Alamein. The second battle was a major counteroffensive, but been pushing there. Had you added in 2 fresh divisions, or even earlier, when Tobruk is, the first, it's major isolation and Rommel's trying to take it. Had you sent another 2 divisions and got them in and pushed on Britain, you could change the outcome in the Mediterranean, and that changes things. So there's a lot of things that you could do that Germany could have won. And that's what interests me in World War II. Well, I think we're going to end this talking episode here with no gameplay. I hope it was interesting for those watching later. And I hope the interesting for the chat. I know you guys I know IQB have been talking about Tank Fest that I want to go someday once COVID and things are over. Someday I'd love to travel around Europe a bit and have some meetups. I know they'd be small, but meet up with a few of you guys and we could have a few pizzas and talk about what our favorite World War II and other things. So someday I do want to travel around and say hi to all of you. But thanks so much. See you next time for even more, Hearts of Iron talking, whatever.